Mm.
I want to thank you so much, Professor Ginzburg, for joining us this morning. Your book, The Cheese and the Worms, has thrilled our students um, in our Master of Arts seminar here at Cal State San Bernardino as a very, very quick introduction for everybody. And then I just want to take a few minutes of Professor Ginzburg's time for a quick chat. And if anybody has any questions, there will be a few minutes for that. Professor Ginzburg, of course, as you all know, is the author of The Cheese and the Worms, The Cosmos of a 16th Century Miller, also The Night Battles, Witchcraft, and Agrarian Cults in the 16th and 17th Century, and a number of other books. He received his PhD from University of Pisa in 1961, and he taught at the University of Bologna, and our neighbor here, University of California, Los Angeles, and the Scuola Normale Superiore di Pisa. His fields of interest range widely, but as you know, of course, they include the Italian Renaissance all the way through modern European history. He's received the 2010 Balzan Prize, a Swiss-Italian prize for achievements in the natural sciences, humanities, and culture, and the advancement of peace. And he was elected as an international member of the American Philosophical Society in 2013. I use funny metaphors sometimes for my students, but this is a little bit like if we were having a soccer practice and Lionel Messi joined us. And I figured if I came up with an Italian footballer, I wasn't sure if he would be a favorite of yours because I know that it can be very regional in Italy. But I think it's really a delight for you to join us. I want to welcome anybody to share any comments. But how are you doing there, Professor Ginzburg?
Well, I mean, yeah, the political situation in Italy is not is is not very good, but the same can be said about the U.S. So, yeah, it's a it's
Absolutely.
a it's a I mean, it's a difficult time, to say the least.
Indeed, indeed, and I think our students may be interested in hearing a little bit about that. Um, again, I want to welcome everybody to share any thoughts or questions. I have just a couple quick questions that I think might echo some things that my students have in mind for just a few minutes, if it might be okay. One thing that came up in our seminar last year when we read the book, and some of our students are second year MA students and some first years, was about the question of Minocchio. The story of Minocchio is very engaging and it's even dramatic, I think, in a way that you introduce the complexities of the miller and his cosmos and his world. And I wonder if do you think that a scholar, and specifically a historian, has some duty or some obligation to convey their research in a way that is engaging and entertaining, and then connected to that? Do you think there is a risk in that duty to potentially distort the story in the pursuit of an engaging or a narrative history?
This is a good question, and I often thought about this issue, and um, I have a motto which I would like to share with you: truffles for everybody. Why? Truffles are good, are expensive, are rare. Truffles for everybody. This is a metaphor, of course, but I mean, it's a metaphor which implies a rejection of a kind of patronizing attitude. So the idea is to share with a wider audience, not only with specialists, um, research and also the trajectory towards the results of research. And I think this is very important. And my model here is Mark Bloch, because Bloch said that um, to share with readers the trajectory of research is important. He didn't mention the political implications, but because maybe they were obvious. So I would say I would emphasize this.
That's wonderful. That and very, very memorable. Truffles for everybody. Thank you so much. Uh, I caught I read a little bit in your more recent work about the idea of slow reading, and you talked about the crisis today in Italy and the political crises in America. And I wonder if you can talk a little bit about slow reading and whether you think it could be a kind of healing elixir in an age of social media manipulation and sometimes a world that seems to go mad every morning. And this idea of slow reading.
So this idea is an echo of Friedrich Nietzsche's definition of philology. Nietzsche was a philologist before becoming a philosopher. And he said that philology is the art of slow reading. Now, my point is that slow reading is compatible with the speed of internet. And I tried to um, provide a demonstration about this in an essay which is called the Conversations with Orion, and which is included in a collection of essays of mine. Um, and but I have to check this because it's available in many languages. But maybe this essay is part of a book which is going to be translated into English. The Letter Kills. But Conversations with Orion, I mean, Orion was the name of the software of UCLA catalog. And I used to play with the catalog because the point was to be taken by surprise. And I used to say that for a scholar, for a researcher, to find what we are looking for, period, is not enough. And the point is to be taken by surprise and by some documents, questions, completely unexpected. And so the possibility of creating this situation seems to me very interesting. And so I also, this essay, Conversations with Orion, paved the way to an essay which is called Latitude, Slaves, and the Bible. And this, it's about a case study, a Huguenot, which I found by chance, but chance which has been constructed as a chance. Actually, I'm fascinated by this notion of chance also because in Italian, chance and case uh, are, let's say, point to the same word, caso. And so I tried to combine both. And so I came across a case, a name, in fact, and the title of the book on in UCLA catalog, which seems to be interesting. And by chance, I found a photocopy of the book that was many years ago on the shelves of the UCLA library. And so I started to read this, and then for 2 years I worked on this case. And this was the author was a Huguenot from Geneva, and his name was Jean-Pierre Pury, and he was from Neuchâtel, and he was proposing a let's say, colonization project to the Amsterdam Society for Eastern trade, and he was suggesting as a place for this development um, regions at the 39 parallel south. But then he changed his mind and he said that because this proposal was not successful, and so he moved to north. In fact, what was behind this suggestion was, let's say, the place of the Holy Land. And so the connection of Holy Land and, let's say, colonization, European colonization, seemed to me very interesting. And actually, he founded in South Carolina a city whose name was Perrysburg. And I visited this place, and it's incredible because there is a sign with his name, Perrysburg, but the city has been destroyed. There is a forest and some fragments of graves in a dark space. Now, well, I'm moving, let's say, away from Menocchio's case, but only apparently because I'm dealing with cases. And this has been, let's say, my trajectory towards microhistory. So the problem is to, and I think that this is very important because, let's say, a focus on cases, it's something, and case studies, and it's something which can travel to different, let's say, historical perspective, um, uh, to people with different cultural background and so on and so forth, which, in my view, explains also, let's say, the translatability of the cheese and the worms. Obviously, the what was crucial was Menocchio's powerful personality. But then there were, let's say, issues which were translatable, like, let's say, his uh, bold attitude towards religious and political authorities first. And then the interaction between oral culture and written culture. I mean, phenomena which are cross-cultural, so to speak. And but then there is this idea of, let's say, case studies, and the possibility of using generalizations in order to understand a case, and the other way around. And I think this is very important because I cannot see any, in fact, any opposition between micro and macro history. And I wrote an essay in English, and then translated into several languages, which is called Microhistory and World History. Actually, this was included in the Cambridge History of the World, I think. And so, let's say, the idea that microhistory is not only compatible, but also, let's say, can be a sort of rich approach to macro history seems to me important.
That's wonderful. And you led from your from the point about slow reading right to the third and the final main question that I had, which was about bridging the gap between the breathtaking scale of longue durée
Mm,
history and histoire totale and the
mm.
micro history. So that was perfect. That was exactly what I was interested to hear your reflections on. I
Excellent.
said we would only talk for about 10 or 15 minutes, and we are at time, but I want to just quickly invite anybody who wants to unmute to say hello or to we've got some waving, and I know it's early. It's early morning here, so folks might, like me, be a little bit quiet in their house. But if anybody wants to share a quick comment or a question, then this is the time to do it. And then we're going to move to wrapping up our very brief and really delightful conversation. I'm so glad that Professor Ginzburg was able to join us. Um, Rosandra, were you going to unmute and jump in?
Oh, yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Hello. I'm so excited just to be like in the Zoom room with you because you're such like a powerhouse in history. I was just wondering, since you're credited as the father of microhistory, like does that a lot of pressure? And do you agree that you're the father of microhistory, since I've heard that others did use that before you?
I didn't hear you very well. Could you please repeat your question?
Oh yeah, sorry. You're credited as the father of microhistory. I was just wondering if you agree with this sentiment, since I've heard that there was like one or two other people that used that term before you.
No, I cannot hear you.
Okay, I'll repeat what the
Okay.
idea of microhistory. Thanks, Rosandra. The idea of microhistory, and whether it's where its beginnings were in your understanding, and that may be a sort of big can of worms, and I don't want to take too much cheese in the worms can of worms, but just a word about your role in the beginnings of microhistory.
Well, microhistory was thank you for your question, Rosandra. Microhistory was a collective project, a group of Italian historians who, at the end of the 70s, were, let's say, engaged in a debate around a journal, Quaderni Storici. In fact, my book, The Cheese and the Worms, I mean, never used the word microhistory. That was before the debate, and actually, the discussion about my book played a role on the debate. So, let's say, the formula which was put forward by Edoardo Grendi, who played a big role in that debate, eccezionale, normale, normal, exceptional, was in fact a sort of a dense resume of what I wrote about Menocchio's case. Because Menocchio is exceptional, not only because he was exceptional as a person, but also the document is exceptional. On the other hand, I mean, I used the case of Menocchio in order to suggest a kind of unexpected approach to peasant culture. And so the issue of generalization was part of my approach. Is this back and forth issue, back and forth trajectory between, let's say, micro and macro, which I mentioned before, which is, I think, anticipated in my book.
That is so great. That the last question from Marlet, thank you for jumping in. The most difficult part about writing The Cheese and the Worms is, and we've touched about on this a little bit, is it okay to ask that last specific question? Was there a specific thing about writing The Cheese and the Worms that stood out as the most difficult aspect for you?
Well, I mean, I at that moment I was involved in a project which never realized, with two novelists. One was very famous, even at that time, Italo Calvino, and the other one was Gianni Celati, much younger. But we were, let's say, having a debate, and we were planning to um, put put forward a journal, but the project failed. Now, um, I think that let's say those debates were very important because I realized something I was already aware of, meaning the importance of the cognitive element of fictional narratives. And this was also part of my family legacy because my mother, Natalia Ginzburg, um, was a novelist. And her work is currently translated into dozens of languages. And so I think that, let's say, on the other hand, my father was a philologist. So I think that, let's say, this convergence of, let's say, fiction and history is at the center of my attempt to work as a historian. And in fact, um, the subtitle of a collection of essays of mine, the threads and traces, is true, false, fictive.
Thank you so much, Professor Ginzburg. And I'm glad that Marlet and Rossandra got your questions in. That again brought us full circle. This was really, really lovely to the question of narrative, to the question of fiction, to the question of what we're doing here as historians. I can't tell you how grateful I am. And Rossandra said, thank you so much. This was such an
I'm
honor.
grateful to you and to your students. It was really great.
I'm really thank you so much, Professor Ginzburg. I'll follow up with a small thank you that
Okay.
we'll send your way. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. Thank you.